Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back once again to the VoV Network, where great things are always happening. My name is Brian, and I am here with Mina, who's the other co-founder for VoV. Mina, how are you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm great.
Welcome, everyone. So today's topic we're going to dive into has to do with that thing that we all kind of get hung up in sometimes. We know we need help. We're in a situation, no matter what it is, personal, professional life, etc. And but we won't ask for it for whatever the reasons are. And that's what we want to dig into today is to talk about why is it so hard to simply ask for help when you need it. Let's get into it. Well, welcome back, everyone. So, as we said, today's topic, we're going to be talking about why is it so hard to simply ask for help? Mina, you kind of brought this subject to light. You want to share a little bit of what the inspiration was for that?
I didn't really have an inspiration for it. It just was, I thought, was a good topic to talk about because people have a hard time asking for help. They want to do everything themselves. And I thought it would be great to get into that and actually found some great information on it.
Well, good, good. So, we're going to dive into it. I think one of the most important things that people get caught up in, like you said, when you're talking about asking for help or why we won't ask for help, revolves around fear. Just general fear as a broad statement. But then there are a lot of underlying pieces to that fear as to maybe some things that why you have the fear. Is it going to be based on being rejected if they say no, and how that you know emotionally might feel to you? Is there some anxiety that's associated with um, having to interact with someone and ask those particular questions? Uh, how do you think fear plays into our ability to just step up and say, "Hey, listen, I need some help"?
Yeah, I think that people don't like to feel vulnerable. And if you have to ask someone for help and you might get that no, it's a fear of wanting to be put in that place where someone's going to tell you no, and you're going to feel like, well, damn, why didn't they, why wouldn't they help me, but there's sometimes there's reasons behind it. And I think it diminishes status.
Hmm.
And it's like if you're a person that is really into controlling situations or controlling in your life, right? And then have to, now you got to ask someone for help. It's definitely putting you in a vulnerable state, and you don't like to be vulnerable. That person probably doesn't. So, yeah, that's
That's
what I
true.
think it's about. Hmm.
That's true. That's very true. And I think there are other pieces to it too. I mean, obviously there is the rejection piece of it. I also think there's a little bit of, well, maybe not a little bit, maybe a lot actually, of judgment or concern about judgment
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
the person kind of goes, "What? You can't handle your own mess or whatever it is, right?"
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but that's actually not the point. The whole
Right,
issue of needing help is understanding that
right,
uh, we technically should be here for each other and to help
right.
each other out, right?
Exactly.
So
Mm,
getting past that concern of being judged, et
right.
cetera, is something that you really shouldn't be worried about. What do you think?
I agree because there's, like I said, most likely a reason, and they may not because, on the other hand, they might have to be vulnerable in telling you. And maybe they don't want, they have the same issue and don't want to tell you that what that vulnerability is, right? Or
Hmm.
maybe they will tell you. But either way, it's not necessarily a judgment thing. They're not necessarily judging you. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so I think that there's two parts to the story. There's communication. There's the sender and the receiver, and you may not know what's going on with that receiver, and they might be sending back to you only part of their information.
Correct. Very, very, very true. Another piece of it has to do with the emotional tie to it, right? Because
Mhm.
I think the one of the big pieces that people get caught in is processing in their own minds and hearts and guts how the interaction is gonna go. It's like a movie you play in slow motion,
Mhm,
thinking how the interaction will go when you
mhm.
ask for that help, or ask for the support that you need. And for whatever reasons, why is it that we kind of play the worst case scenario of how it goes? The first take is like first take, and it's just
Mhm.
like the world's on fire, right?
Yeah,
Uh, and
yeah,
I don't know why human nature we tend to do that a lot, but I think that's one of the other key factors that plays into it. Is
right.
there's this emotional tie, and we talked about this in a different video, and I want to say it was the one on either talking about your fears, and I believe that's the one that it was in reference to, but how there's a part of the brain that takes an emotional event as a memory, and then it also can from there kind of translates it to almost feel like a physical trauma, right? Which is
Right.
very interesting. So I think so as part of that whole thought process, you're thinking this way and
Yeah,
having the negativity and the negative feelings about it from an emotional standpoint.
right.
And then the mind then takes that and processes it through to this sense that there's going to be a physical pain
Mm,
from having to ask for help.
mhm. Yeah. And then and another sense it's also emotional, right? It can stay on
Mhm.
emotional level. So, I think that it has a lot to do with confidence, right? So
Confidence.
you prejudge the situation. You've got all these ideas about whether you can even ask for it
Mhm.
or even, what they're going to come back with, that it's personal or judgmental. But so there you go with your confidence, and it's beating up your confidence when, like we said earlier, it might not have anything to do with that at all. But
Mhm.
yeah, so it's on that in that case, it's on an emotional level rather than physical, and, it can come from either way.
And that's very true.
Mhm.
And the other piece I think ties into it, so you've got a lot going on when you are processing your way through
Yes.
asking, just
Yes.
just that interaction of asking.
Mhm.
Uh, One word I mentioned a little while ago is ego,
Yeah,
right? So your
right,
your personal ego, right?
right.
And how that also can play into um, I can carry the world on my shoulders. And that's how I want to be seen, and that's how
Yeah,
I want to be perceived. But then that weight that you are carrying,
yeah,
right? That's where stress,
right.
things that impact your health,
Mhm,
things that may impact your mental state all come
mhm,
from because
mhm.
you have chosen to I'm gonna he man up and I'm gonna try to
Yeah,
carry all of this, right? He man or he woman this thing up the
yeah,
hill and I can push that rock up the hill by myself. I
yeah,
don't need help, blah blah blah. And it's all wrapped around
mm.
um, ego from that standpoint. What do you think is the root of that?
I think the root of that is control.
Really? Okay.
Because if I he man it up or he woman it up the hill, I got control of that mess. I know what's going on. I don't have to worry about depending on somebody else. I don't have to worry about anybody else's interjections that maybe even I don't agree with or them going off la la land with something. I got it because I'm he manning it up, you
Hmm.
know? So I
Hmm.
think it's got a little bit to do with control.
Control. I,
A lot of it.
a lot of it has to do with control, and that's actually one of the things that I made a note of talking about control and
Yeah.
saying that I think it is of all of these things one of the
Mhm.
biggest factors that plays into it
Mhm.
because we want to feel like, hey, manifest destiny. I am in control of my world. I am the captain of
Right.
my ship.
Yeah.
I'm in control, right? And if there's anything that we should have all learned over the last 2 years with the pandemic and some other things, we have little control sometimes over
Yeah.
over a lot. But for whatever reasons, human nature, we feel like we can empower and press ourselves onto whatever the situation is and
Yeah.
actually truly control it. And I think many times that leads to some type of detriment that stops you from getting to where you need to get to.
Yeah.
You fall short because you get your energy, the energy and effort that it takes. Maybe it's something if you just would have simply said, "Hey, can you take, you know, this chunk and do it for me or help me with it. I'll take care of the rest. And
Yeah,
then that means you finish or reach that goal, that objective, get
yeah,
that done in a week versus 6 months because
yeah.
you chose to,
Sure.
keep it all to yourself kind of thing.
Right, right,
So
right.
I think control as one of the root causes and factors is probably one of the biggest pieces that's associated with it for sure.
And if you're a spiritual or a religious, two different things, person, someone or something is in control of everything. So
Right.
really, for me, of course, God. Um, so I don't have control anyway. It's gonna be the way that he wants anyway, he or she
Hmm.
wants anyway, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a lie we tell ourselves, and honestly, it's very difficult to get out of that frame of thinking. You
Hmm.
know, you make a
Hmm.
you make a great um, accomplishment in your life, and you think, "I did it." Well, don't forget how you got there. Who helped you? Who did you pray to? Who was involved? Not to just get on a religious tip, but yeah. So you didn't have control anyway.
Right. Right. Yeah, there was definitely some shared responsibilities and everything else as you went through that growth in your life and
Oh yeah.
accomplished that task in your life, right?
Hmm.
Even if it's just that person that was your cheerleader, right? That's
Yeah.
actually in some ways
Hmm.
having help and having support. Just the fact that they get behind you and go, "Hey, you can do this," right? They might
Man,
not do anything for you other
right.
than that, but that's still help and support, right?
I would say the last year I had a cheerleader, and man, it helped so much, and it was just little stuff, like little comments here and there. I mean, I had more than one, but having that cheerleader was just beautiful because sometimes you feel like, "I can't do this,"
Mhm.
especially when it's a difficult challenge, "I just can't
Mhm.
do this." But you got these people that are important in your life that just be like right there with you, "You can do this." They don't even know what you're struggling with because they're not doing your program, whatever you're doing, but they'll be there for you. They'll cheer you on, and that's a big deal. But we're not really
Agreed.
talking about cheerleaders. Maybe that's another video,
Yeah.
cheerleaders.
Again, true.
Being
I
a
mean, that's it's not specific to this conversation, but it is
cheerleader.
actually part of the whole
Mhm.
support mechanism
It
when
is.
you really talk
It
about that.
is. Mhm.
Um,
Imma write that down so we remember.
so to summarize, basically, we're talking about answering the question, the piece of why is it that by human nature and on average and in general, we struggle sometimes with asking for help, asking for the
Yeah.
support that we need. So we've basically summarized that it has something to do with our fears, anxieties, possibly being rejected. Obviously, there's ego that plays into it, um, and then the big one is control. Feeling
And
like
confidence.
and yeah, and confidence too, right? That is true. Confidence plays into it. Having the confidence to even step forward and ask. So I want to shift to the other side of the coin now, and I want to start to talk about the how to versus. I mean, we've kind of determined, why we don't, but now say, okay, I've accepted that. I know I need to start to
Mhm.
ask for more help, ask for more support. How do I go about doing that? So I think one of the first steps that you want to start when you talk about that is when you do ask someone for help, be very concise and specific about what it is you're asking them to do, to
Mhm.
support you, to help you.
Right.
Uh, so don't make it this long, rambling thing, and then you finish, and they're looking at you like,
What do you need?
What?" Right?
I don't
Yeah.
know what you want.
Yeah. So frame it in a way that it's very clear as to where you need them to start and stop with the support and the help and what their role is going to be specific and what the tasks and the objectives are of what they're doing so that they have a clear understanding of what it is they're being asked to do, right?
Mhm.
So take the time to think that through before you have that conversation.
Mhm.
I think is a key piece to it.
Right.
Um, The next one would be,
Wait, let's stay with that one. There's
okay, go
one
ahead.
more point about that. I think when you do that, you also gotta be willing to accept a little less, right? Negotiate it because what you're asking for may be too much. Maybe that person, let's say you're asking someone for $1,000. I'm just gonna put that out there. You're asking someone for $1,000. They may
Mhm,
not be able to afford, and we were talking about the vulnerability thing. Maybe they don't
mhm,
wanna tell you, "I'm broke, but I can give you $200." I
mhm,
got that. So be willing to accept what they can give for you and know that they may not be able to do what you're asking for, but they can do something to help you,
mhm,
right?
mhm. Agreed. I absolutely agree with that, because you do have to be aware that, and understand that, they you have the right to ask, and I think that's the whole point of this. You don't people don't ask the help, but you
Mhm.
have the right to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
They also have the right to say no.
Mhm.
So understand that going into this exchange, that both parties have the right, one to ask and one to say no,
Mhm.
and that there should be no judgment, so no resentment, or anything associated with how that
Mhm.
actually plays out, because both sides do have that right going into it.
Mhm.
Next piece I want to bring up is revolves around the opposite side of what we talked about, control, and that is empowerment or delegation, right? Because that's really what you have to kind of start to think about. If you're in a situation and you've got 10 things to get done, right? And you're trying to jam through all 10 of these things and hold them all close, and you realize that, I really could use some help, especially to meet the timeline or get it done by
Mhm.
Saturday or whatever it
Mhm.
might be.
Mhm.
And you say, why can't I just ask Sally to take these three and I'll manage the other seven? So
Mhm.
that can be looked at as one of two things. Either now you're empowering Sally,
Mhm.
or you're delegating from a position of
Mhm.
leadership and control, right?
Mhm.
Which are both positive things, because you're now trusting someone to manage those tasks for you.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's funny. I think that's one of the things we didn't bring up when we talk about asking for help or trying to maintain control, and that's
Mhm.
trust,
Mhm.
right? Because that's a reason I think people hang on to some things very close
Mhm.
sometimes. Is like, do I really trust them to do it like I would do it, or this get the
Mhm.
result that I want? And so they have all of that process that they're going
Mhm.
through as well.
The
But
control.
that and part of control, right?
"Hey, Delby." Go ahead.
And I think what happens there too is that's where you have to get comfortable with empowering
Mhm.
others and being able to delegate out
Right.
to others.
Mhm. I agree, I agree with that, absolutely, to an extent, but there's another side of that. So, when you have to, um, consider be considerate of the other side of it, right?
Hmm.
So, consider all things when you decide, "Oh, I'm gonna delegate, I'm gonna trust," whatever, that's wonderful. I mean, that's a great thing, but at the same time, you gotta think of all factors. You know what you wanna get done and why you're, asking for it, but did you consider the other side of it? Because
Hmm.
you might not get like I was saying earlier, they might need to negotiate because of these things that you don't know, or the things you do know, but you don't know what the extent of it is. So I think, it still goes same thing, goes back to the same thing that yes, it's great that someone trusts and thinks that that person can maybe handle that, but at the same time, in handling that, what is going on with them? So when you ask, if you don't get your information you need, you might have to ask a lot more, or to let them know you're not understanding or getting what you need as far as information. So you can understand why a person would say no, or, maybe not give you what you need.
Agreed. I totally agree with that. So
Yep.
Telvi had a comment,
Thanks so much.
and she's saying,
Yeah.
people do find it hard sometimes.
Yes. especially with money. Comes to money. It's hard to ask somebody for some money, right? Yeah. Mhm.
Yep. I
But you
mean,
gotta
money,
remember,
money
huh?
definitely money is definitely is one of the
Mhm.
harder ones to ask for
Yeah,
because it's a
it's
more tangible thing and it has more value to it as well.
yeah.
Um, but that the whole point of that, it doesn't matter if it's just can a negotiation between a husband and a
Mhm.
wife because
Yeah.
part of this is all part of our new year, new you thing, and
Mhm.
so now there are some things where you've decided, hey, you know what, I want to get in better shape, right?
Mhm.
Just something simple as that. So, and
Mhm.
maybe you as the spouse, whether it's the husband or the wife, your responsibility is to pick up the kids from daycare 5 days a
Right.
week.
Yeah.
But you've now also determined at least 2 days a week, I actually want to work out that time of day.
Mhm.
But now, so that means now you have to ask your spouse,
Yeah.
can you pick up the
Yeah.
kids these 2 days of the week, which
Mhm.
helps me so that I can stay on task for my goal, right? That
Mhm.
I'm trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
But asking that is what we're
Yes.
talking about, even though
Yes.
it's those are the types of things that people get stuck in.
Mhm.
They know
Mhm.
they need it, they know they want it. So
Mhm.
either she will find the courage to ask,
Mhm.
or she'll try to fight her way through
Mhm.
accomplishing her goal and still having to pick up the kids 5
Mhm.
days a week, right? Which
And
adds more stress to her and makes it
right.
a greater challenge for her to actually
Mhm.
get there.
And at the same time, when she asked that husband, she gotta understand he may have a lot going on. He may not be able to do that. And
Mm,
so is there a negotiation they can work out? Or is it just a fine line you just can't? He can't. Is it a no, he can't, or is there a way you can work it in? And
mhm,
so, but that's communication. And we should
mhm,
call this friends, family, and significant others. You know,
mhm.
I see all your comments, girl. There are 7 days in a week, not just 5 days in a week. I think both spouses should help out, Telby says. And she
Mhm.
also says, I know it's hard for me. I'll go without. Yeah.
Yeah,
When we're talking about money. Yeah, you're right.
yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is true. But that's what we mean when and what we brought this topic to the table is a lot of us have come into the new year and we've set new targets, new goals, and objectives for ourselves
Mhm.
personally, for our
Right.
families, and everything else. Which then means maybe we do need to shift some of the things how they're arranged in our life,
Mhm.
which goes back to the topic we just had in the previous video, where you're
Right.
trying to find that harmony and that balance. But
Mhm.
to get there, you're gonna have to say, "All right, I need you to help me here. We
Mhm.
need to shift this way." Those kinds of
Right.
things.
Mhm.
But those things are not magically gonna happen. You
No.
actually have to ask and have those conversations.
And yeah, and realistically plan it. Realistically go through it to what really would work, like you could really do. I mean, it makes no sense to make a plan that is not gonna work for whatever reason. Both sides
Mhm,
have gotta come to the table and talk about that. Yeah.
mhm,
But I wanna say one other thing because I actually did this week. When you're asking for help, don't apologize for asking because it minimizes the importance of what you're asking for. Like I can say this. I was working with a commander or with a situation, and it was really important. I had to reach a commander, and I didn't know who the commander was, right? They had just changed, and I didn't know the name. So I called their senior enlisted person, and I called him, I text him, I get nothing.
mm,
I can't find out who this is, but it's important I have to reach this because I'm calling another there's one significant office and I call them or I text them, I mean, email them, I say, "Who's the commander for da 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 da?" I know it changed soon, but I didn't say I'd already talked to that other person. But before I asked who, I said, I'm sorry, I know you're very busy. And you know what I got back? Contact
mm,
that person I'd already contacted. Like
mm,
this office should know, they should have the answer, but I made it like it was nothing. Oh, so I can just go on and I'm sorry, I know you're busy and I did eventually get the answer, but I had to go through some hoops to get it. But it was like I should have never apologized for asking for something that I actually need. It's taking care of work, it's taking care of business.
Correct.
I shouldn't have said that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
lesson
Not
learned.
apologizing is key for because it puts you in a space where it's almost like you're belittling yourself,
Yes,
f
yes,
groveling to someone to
yes,
ask for help, right?
yes, yes.
So there's a comment here, and that's
I
exactly what
see
this is
that.
saying.
Yes.
Talking about, sometimes when you have to ask for help,
Yeah,
you apologizing for it, those kinds of things, it makes you feel inadequate,
yeah. Mhm.
too, which is another thing that you have to look at and consider from that standpoint. Just
That one, yeah.
yeah, the
But tell me
inadequacies too.
then.
I mean, both sides, you shouldn't have to apologize, but then also the
Mhm,
inadequacy, I think, is a big, big one that pops in,
mhm,
and
mhm,
people see
mhm.
that and deal with that all the time, right?
Right. Mhm. And don't and Telvi says that she feels grateful though when she asks for help. Um, so she'll apologize, but you never thought it was minimizing. But yeah, it is. You when you ask for help, you need help. You just ask for it. They're gonna say yes,
Mhm.
no, or they're gonna give you a negotiation. It's gonna be one or the other. It is what it is.
Yep,
Just do what you have to do, and you get it or you won't.
yep.
I
I
mean,
absolutely agree with that.
I
Absolutely
used
agree
to
with that.
I used to work in an organization. I don't work there anymore. And then when we would take leave, our boss, I don't care what kind of leave it was, our boss didn't like it. And we all knew it. So we would all be like, I got to take a day of leave, before you put in your form, right? Or vacation, sick leave, whatever. And one guy told me one time, I was going in to getting ready to tell her I needed to take a week of leave or whatever. And I was telling him, oh gosh, I got to go ask for a week of leave. He's like, she's not going to like it regardless, but you need it. So just do it. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Just go in, ask for what I need. Whatever she says, I'm going to get it because she doesn't have a right to turn it down unless there's something significant going on that they can't let me go. So I already know that. So just go in and get the dang leave and walk on out the office, right? Yeah.
Correct.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so that was a good lesson for me, and I stopped apologizing for it, I stopped acting like I was scared to take I was like, Imma get my leave, I need it for whatever it is. I need a break, I need sick leave, whatever, and just
Mhm,
start
mhm.
doing it, and you just
Yep.
have to do that.
Yeah, it
What's
is
that
true. You
comment?
have you
Sure.
you have to get to a point of having not only the confidence, but uh, it goes back to self care, even some point, and some
Mhm.
pieces of it, right, which we've talked about in
Mhm.
the past, of standing up and asking for clearly, concisely what it is you need, the support that you need, getting the answers that you need, as you talked about in that other scenario, because that you need it. And it's just
Yeah.
that simple, and
Mhm.
being okay with it, not apologizing for it, and not again somebody used the term inadequacy. It's not feeling like because either you don't
Mhm.
know or you didn't have access to the right information. That's why you're seeking it, or you need to ask that person for some additional help and support. That in any way demeans you or makes you inadequate in any way. That's just part of the process, and
It
to be
is,
okay
it
with
is.
that, I think is very important.
Right. And always remembering there's always 2 sides to it. Remembering that you may not know everything, you might need to get more information. Just always remembering that it's not necessarily personal against you.
Right.
And then again, it could be, right? But but most likely it's not, right? So
Right.
remembering that people work in reference to their needs. They're not necessarily always thinking about, it takes a very special person to be thinking about others and their needs. So, yeah, you got to remember that it's not necessarily personal. They're thinking about what they can or can't do for you. They're not really thinking about necessarily what you need, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
selfish, can be a little selfish, but that's how we roll. That's how people roll. Some are really generous, and those people, you hold on to them. Those people that can go that extra mile and think about the other person and their needs, right? Keep them around.
That is so true. That is so
Mhm.
true. Um, the other piece that I wanted to toss out there, because you talked about not apologizing, and I
Yeah,
use the term when I said that, own it, and that's kind of
yeah,
the thing, right? You
yeah.
just own it.
You need it.
That's what you were saying a minute ago. Just step up there
Mhm.
and just own it when you get out there. Um, the other piece too that and I think this is where we get stuck in our own minds, but really try to get comfortable with approaching it that it's not a personal, I mean, excuse me, it
It's
is
not.
a personal request, not transactional. So
No.
don't approach it like there's this tit for tat, or I do this for you, you do this for me.
Yes.
Understand that your request to the individual is it is a personal thing, and when possible, I mean, it's not always, but when possible, especially if it's going to be a greater impact to them, or if they're going to have to truly go out of their way to help and support, try to have the conversation face to face. Not always
Mhm.
possible, but
Mhm.
try to personalize it as best you can,
Right.
because it shows respect for the other person.
Mhm.
I think it'll also help you be able to communicate it better and be more concise about what you're asking.
Mhm.
Trying to do it through a text message or something like that just leaves
Mhm.
so much to
Mhm.
interpretation, and what's really needed or not needed, what it is you're trying to
Mhm.
communicate.
It's
Um,
easier to say no too.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, right, because there's not a tie to it right there.
Yeah.
But when possible, face to face. If
Mhm.
direct face-to-face contact is not an option, at least make it a request from a more personalized standpoint than
Mhm.
transactional. It's not like I'm going to give you this, you give me that.
Oh,
That's not the
a
approach.
quid pro quo,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. And then you could do face-to-face time
yeah,
or messenger. Yeah.
yeah. There's lots of options now,
Mhm.
obviously, to at least see the person's face and have that
Mhm.
conversation. Uh, but the key is that there is actually a you've identified that there is a need. B, you've gotten comfortable with making that request.
Right.
Then obviously the next step is taking a moment before you make the request to prep how you're
Yes.
going to go about doing it, so that when you do it, it's concise, you get right to the point, you make it personal,
Mhm.
et cetera, et cetera. Because those are all of the key
Mhm.
components that are going to matter to so you can be comfortable asking for that help that you need.
Also, you could sit down, take a deep breath, visualize yourself, close your eyes if you need to. Visualize yourself at a time when you were confident and strong and you can do this. And when you've
Mhm.
done well in the past. And then sit down and make your plan. And when you do it, go ahead on and ask.
It is very true.
Yeah,
It is
just do
very
it.
true.
Just do it.
And then
I'll
the
trust the
other
Holy
thing too
Spirit.
that I wanted to put out there is talk about gratitude. Someone mentioned gratitude in
I'm
the
sorry.
comment. Um, yes, you absolutely want to show gratitude, but
Mhm.
understanding that it's you have this is a fine line kind of thing. Yes, you obviously are appreciative that the person said, "Yes, I will help you." Right.
Mhm.
So yes, you want to be grateful for that, and obviously, oh, thank you. I really appreciate jumping in to help.
Mhm.
But then even as they go through the process, and it may be what you need help with, it's not just a one-time thing. They've got to
Right.
continually do something for you. Continue to reinforce
Mhm.
that you are grateful for what they're doing. You
Mhm.
don't just say thank you the first time and the next 10 times say nothing. You
Mhm.
want to, where you can, show that you do appreciate that they're providing that ongoing help and that ongoing support, because that's
Mhm.
going to be key, a key part of it as well.
Right. Agreed. I
Yeah.
agree with that. Yeah.
Because gratitude is, it just shows that the fact that they are helping really does matter to you, and that you truly do
Mhm.
appreciate it. So continuing to show gratitude is an important thing. Uh,
Mhm.
and then the last piece that I want to put out there really talks about just humankind in general. And one of the
Mhm.
things about humankind is we, in general, like helping other people. You know,
Yeah.
it's actually a normal thing, right?
Mhm.
And so don't we get caught up in this thing like, oh, I'm really asking for um, you know, something that's, is outside of what they normally do for me, or this, that, or the other thing, whatever it might be. But it's humankind, human nature. We actually do like helping each other. We
Mhm.
we would much prefer to be, on average, I again can't speak for every
Mhm.
situation and every person, to be engaged and to be supportive and to help. Uh, different people within our lives and our social circles and everything else. I think that's a key part. The other side of the coin also comes into play, and that is you also need to be helpful for others, right? Because it even, and I'm not saying it needs to be one for one. In other words,
Tit for
if
tat.
this person helps you, it doesn't mean you need to help that person
Mm,
specifically back, but you should be willing to help others if asking for help from others across the
mhm,
board is something
mhm,
that you need and you do. Because what it'll do is it'll show you that you do have the gratitude and the appreciation, and that you're also that person who is
right.
supportive and helpful to others. So when the
Mhm,
time comes and you have a request for some help and support,
mhm,
trust me, people in your circle, whether it's family, friends,
mhm,
relationships, coworkers, they will see how you are when it comes to offering help and being supportive to other people.
mhm. Sure, you got a couple comments there. I don't know who that person is. It's on Facebook that said agreed. Gratitude is very important
Mhm.
because for some reason it's not showing. So it'd be great if you put your name if you want to. It's up to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it works both ways, and when you're in relationships, regardless of the type of relationship, that you help each other, right? Um, but no one should be at you, Patricia. No one should be keeping track, keeping how notes on how many times you help me, how many times I help you. No, but if it's genuine that they don't show any gratitude, then yeah, it's human nature to be like, well, dang, I helped them out there, and they done disappeared, and I haven't heard from them, and I don't know how long. Now, when I hear from them, they're asking me for something, right? Right. So
Mhm.
there is that natural human nature to do that, but yeah, if you're in those significant relationships, you help out, and you don't
Yep.
keep track. You're not tit for tat.
Yep. So there's one last thing I want to share. It's a little bit of a story, and this is kind of how I want to wrap this up, at least from my perspective today.
Mhm,
And this is talking about how you frame things, how you ask for things from people when you need their help and need their support. So I'm
mhm,
gonna kind of tell the same thing, but tell it in two different ways.
mhm,
All right. So you either having a conversation, it could whether it's face to face or you are or put it into an email or something like that,
mhm.
and you start it like this, and you say, "It's really good to see you. I'm glad we had a chance to really catch up. How's the family? Blah blah blah. This, that, the other thing. Blah blah." And so you
Already
go through
wonder what they want. Go
10 minutes of that, and then it say, "By the way, I was wondering, could you help me with X, Y, or Z?" Right.
ahead.
So that's one side. The flip side of that conversation, the opposite end, would be, "Listen, I wanted to meet you today because I really could use your help with X, Y, and Z. Here's why. Here's what I need. Here's when." And then, and also it was really good to see you today. And I hope the family is well, and we should get together and maybe do a barbecue together, something like that, if it's that kind of friend, right?
Yeah,
So I contrast that to say, don't be that person who
yeah.
puts the butter on them first, right?
Yes,
Is
because you already
literally
noticed.
literally what you're doing. You're putting the butter on them first, and then you're coming back and asking for what it is that you want, that you
Mm,
need, right? So the thing to do would be direct, be honest, be open, be upfront with the purpose of the conversation. Then, if you want to wrap up with the more personalized side of it, let's get
yeah,
together for a cup of coffee,
yeah,
whatever it might be. You absolutely put that in because, as we said earlier, making this personal versus transactional is a key component to it.
right.
Uh, but that's one way I just want to give some advice as to how to frame things when you do ask for help. Don't lay the butter down first and then come with the request.
Can I say that people that communicate that way, you already know it because that's the way they roll. So you already know what's coming. You already know something's coming behind it because that's
Mhm,
how they communicate all the time with you. So yeah, just get to the point, be concise. This is what I need, and just go from there. And by the way, yeah,
mhm,
yeah, do that.
mhm. It'll make a big difference, and it'll also put you more at ease because, yeah, I think what happens is you do the buttering up first, feeling because you're in your own head. You really is what's going on. You're in your own head. So you're feeling like I've got to soften them up. I've got to butter them up before I come with the punch, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and that's more for you than it is actually for them because you're just trying to psych yourself up or out about what's going on in the situation.
Yeah.
Uh, so be concise, get to the point, be respectful of the other person by doing it that way. Because technically, in some ways, butting it up first and then coming with it is actually kind of being a little bit disrespectful for that individual.
It really is, especially when they read you already. Not
Yeah,
everybody does, but when they're already reading that behavior, it is disrespectful. I'm
yeah,
looking to see if there's any comments we missed because of
yeah.
connection. I'm not distracted. I'm listening and looking.
It's good. Okay. So that's kind of all I have that I wanted to share. Mina, what are your final thoughts for today?
I pretty much keep stressing the being more open and recognizing what you're dealing with on both sides. Um, whether you're the receiver that's getting the question asked, or you're the sender that's asking for the help, just be a little bit more aware of what might be going on for either side.
Hmm.
Be those good friends, that good family member, that significant other that's actually not just asking a question and asking for, but at the same time recognizing what might be on the other side.
Yeah. So I totally agree. My last thought is actually this, and I'm going to go back to what I was just saying a few minutes ago about human nature, and naturally we are actually more engaged and more helpful than
Mhm,
not on average, right? Uh,
mhm,
so I think one of the things that we can all do, especially given what's going on in our world today and many other things and how people are so stressed, is actually offer the help. In other
mhm,
words, when you are with someone and you get that sense of, man, this person seems wound pretty tight, or they've got a lot on their plate, because you can hear it, you can feel it, you can sense it.
mhm,
Ask the question, how can I help? You
mhm,
know, and they may ask for a little thing, they might ask for a big thing, but what I think what you'll find is the energy that that brings, the connection that's going to also have
mhm,
within that relationship is going to strengthen that, and then you will, when you do need help,
mhm,
have so many allies out there because you've
mhm,
shown that you are willing to be that person, to be that
mhm,
helpful, supportive individual, and you're actually going around, how can I help?
mhm,
What can I do to help you? Can I take that off of your plate?
mhm,
And it'll shift your energy, and it definitely will change your mindset when it does
mhm,
come to time for you to ask for some help, for some
mhm,
support.
mhm. Right.
So that's how I think, if you really want to make a transition and make a change, you get comfortable with that. Start offering your own help to others, and
Mhm.
it really will start to make a difference in your energy and how you feel about the whole exchange of asking for help.
Right.
So I think that's it for today, Mina. Anything else you want to share with our audience before we get out of here today?
No, I think I've shared everything that I needed to say. Abby, you got to put Abby's comment out there. So true. So true. But don't you see through it? You're like, what's next?
What's next?
Start
Right?
doing
Yeah.
the buttering up like we don't what is this? What do you want?
What do you want? Right? Yeah. It's kind of meaning what we also talked about, and then we're gonna do a video next month on, they put the best foot forward, and then the other foot shows
Oh
up,
yeah,
right?
yeah. We talked
So
about
it's kind of
that.
this kind of the
Mhm.
same thing, right? Abby, thank you for that comment. That is so true.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
everyone, thank you for joining us today. Hope you found value in what was shared. And again, I think if there's anything you can do to really start to change your world, change what's happening for you in 2022 from a new year, new you perspective, is, um, ask for the help. And the places where you absolutely know you need it, and also offer your help to others who you sense could maybe use some help and use some support, because it'll help you be more confident just in the whole realm of asking for and being helpful to others, and which will benefit all of us out there. And that's the key for us here at the VOV Network. So if you did find value, definitely like this video. Also, share it with others who might be struggling, or you feel like they're in a situation they need help and maybe need to learn some ways to go about asking for that help. And then subscribe to our channel on YouTube so you don't miss our future updates and new video content as it continues to come out.
Right. Yeah,
Uh,
agree.
that's it. So
Mhm.
until next week,
Yeah,
guess we'll say farewell to everyone, and then we will see you Tuesday for our next Unscripted, which will be uploaded on
Wednesday.
you Wednesday. Actually, thank you for
Wednesday,
the
Wednesday,
correction. On
Wednesday.
Wednesday, we're doing it on Wednesdays now, on which will
Switched.
be uploaded to to YouTube. And then
Mhm.
actually next week on Saturday for our live, we actually do have another special guest joining us. So
Yep.
we'll have some details that we'll be sharing on social media this week about another special guest that'll be joining us live here next Saturday. So we look forward to seeing you here for that as well.
Mhm. Thank you, and thank you all of our friends and family that contributed to this live. We appreciate you so much, and keep coming back.
Could not agree more. Until we see you again, everyone take care, be safe, and we'll see you soon.
Aloha.
Goodbye.
Bye.